So I really feel like the first question that I want to ask is for, and I know it's hard, you have so many different businesses and you have so many different projects, but what would you say, how do you describe your mission? What are you trying to do?
Our main mission is literally to share the truth about cancer and vaccines with as many people as we can so that they can be informed about the dangers and the benefits and make a good decision on whether or not they want to, like for instance, take a certain vaccine, or when it comes to cancer, do they want to do chemo or radiation or something else?
Can you kind of talk to us on your path? I was watching a video
Sure.
of Charlene last night, and she was talking about when, I believe it was your first child was born, and she saw the checklist of potential problems that could happen when a child takes a vaccine.
Right.
And I believe that she cited that death could happen, but I don't know if that's what got you on this path.
Yeah, you know, initially we got on this path with natural health. I mean, I graduated from Baylor in 1991. Well, 1990 I got out of undergraduate. In 1991 I got out of graduate school. I did a combined program, and I have a master's in tax. So I'm a CPA, man. You know, so no, I never thought, I didn't ever dream when I got out of Baylor that I would be doing this.
Yeah.
But in 1996 everything kind of changed for us with my dad. So he got sick, and within 25 days of his diagnosis he was gone. You know, and I'm 53 today. He was 52.
Is today your birthday?
No, I mean,
okay, I was going to say,
as I stand here
what a
today,
gift for you if it is your birthday.
I'm 53, but so dad was a year younger than I am now.
Yeah.
When he died, that's way too young. And so he went in for surgery on July the 1st, 96. He died July the 25th. They took his stomach out because he had cancer in his stomach, and he basically bled to death. You know, the cancer compromises the tissue to such an extent that when you sew it up, it still bleeds.
Sure.
So you know, that was our first. That was the first experience with cancer in the family. It was my father, and he was gone. And then over the course of the next several years, we lost mom, grandmom, 2 granddads, cousin, uncle, all to cancer. So began to do some research at that time on natural cancer treatments, and we began to learn that there are many natural treatments out there that we believe God's put here, whether it be a root or a plant or an herb or, you know, the essential oils from certain plants that heal, and that they have healing properties, but doctors aren't taught about them in medical school. Now, by large part, we believe that doctors are good people, want to help, but they can't teach you something that they're not taught. And medical schools are largely run by donations from pharma, and you know, very, very heavy ties to pharmaceutical companies. So we began to learn that there's things we could have done, but we didn't, because we didn't know about them.
You know, and so I guess that's the next part of what I wanted to ask was, so you had this experience. When did you start to decide this is what I'm going to do with my life, right? I mean, you and your wife have really made this your life.
Yeah. So I guess that probably would have been 2004 time period, which was the time Mom died in February 2004. I still remember we lived in McKinney, Texas, just north of Dallas, and it snowed. And it was like, it never snows in Dallas. So it's like, we still remember that day, February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2004. And then at that point, we've been doing a lot of research, and so put together all this research and wrote a book called Cancer Step Outside the Box. I was still director of tax at a CPA firm in Dallas at that time, and had a really successful business career going. So even at that point, it's like, yeah, we wanted to give the book away, but we talked to a guy that we went to church with in Dallas, and he was the director of marketing for Texas Instruments. He said, if you want people to read it, you can't give it away for free because people won't read it because there's no perceived value in something free. So you have to charge for it. So we charged them 15 or 20 bucks or whatever for the book. But even after we published the book, and the book began to sell like crazy, we put it on Amazon and sold thousands of copies. Still didn't think about doing it as a career, you know, and I don't even look at it as a career. It's more of a mission that we have. You know, it's a mission to help people, help educate people so that they don't have to go through the same thing that we went through because they lack knowledge. Right, because we've been accused of like trying to force our position down people's throats. That's exactly the opposite. We're for freedom to choose whatever you want to do. We just feel like people should be educated before they make the choice. And so, but it was after that, you know, several years after that, I was still a CPA, still had my own practice until 2014, and that's when we started producing documentaries.
So I know that one of the issues you faced is that you've been shut down. YouTube has eliminated you.
Right.
Do a lot of search engines, you don't come up.
Yep.
So how has this impacted your career? How has this impacted your business?
Yeah, and it's not just YouTube. It's you know, the Google search engine itself, which is tied to YouTube. Of course, they have common ownership. And it's almost every social media account as well. We've been flagged, shut down, you know, deplatformed. They let us back up, and they cook us off for good or whatever. Almost every social media. It really hurt our business, just as far as, well, I mean, we had people that work for us. We had times where we had to foot the bill ourselves personally, just to keep the people on, and because we weren't making enough money, you know, with generating revenue to pay for our team. And we did that for a long time.
Yeah.
And still, to an extent, you know, today it's really iffy because of all the censorship. You know, and it's kind of funny that, you know, we had accused. I read a Nashville, Tennessee, an article about us. It was like, you know, Tennessee profiteers off coronavirus misinformation or whatever. And it's like, I mean, if you saw, you know, how much we're actually profiting, it's not a lot. I mean, we're paying for a team of people, and they have families, and we want to still be able to, you know, we don't want them to lose their job, you know, because of censorship. So we keep them on, and even though it hurts our reach.
So that's one thing, but I want to talk about business before we start talking about some of the criticism. But you obviously look at your home. You've got a beautiful home.
Sure.
You have seemingly a pretty successul life.
Oh,
some
yeah.
places have, some organizations have cited you making millions off of this.
Right.
Have you made millions?
We're very blessed to have this home. And have we made millions? Well, it depends on if you're talking about gross revenues or profits. And the reality is, no, not millions in profits, but we've made millions in gross revenues. And so there's a big difference. And that was one of the things that I saw in the article about, I think it was the first article that was in the AP, or it may have been CNN. I can't remember. I kind of get them mixed up. But yeah. They're like, you know, they've grossed, you know, or they've made $25 million, I think was the number that they cited in the article. Well, over what period of time, number one, and what were the costs associated with that? And, you know, being a CPA, if you make 25 and you spend 27, then you're not in the green, right? You're in the red. And so that was kind of misleading in that aspect, because, you know, we bought this home before we hardly made any money with doing our documentary films. I was a very successful CPA in Dallas. Right. I was director of tax. We bought this home before all this took off.
Well, that was the reason I wanted to ask you about that, is because as someone that is an expert on money, let's be honest, that's, you know, what
right.
you are. The criticism is you've made a fortune off misinformation. Right. And so I wonder, have you made a fortune? I guess that's the question. Are you extremely wealthy after making these videos?
No, we're not extremely wealthy by any means, and we haven't made a fortune. And but I'm not saying that God hasn't blessed us. Certainly He has. We live comfortably, and we're thankful for all that God's given us. Well, because we look at it as a gift from God, and so we're thankful for that. But I can tell you one thing: we've not made a penny off of disinformation, because I don't believe anything that we've spread is disinformation.
This is why it's important. My phone here died for just a second, okay. And so I'm going to just fire this back up real quick. When I don't touch it, it, like all other phones, does the same wonderful thing. Okay, and I've got it pointed towards your plant, and there we go. So let's talk about some of the criticism, and I do need to get this on camera for some of this.
Sure.
You know, you obviously have faced a lot of criticism for ultimately passing along what people say is misinformation.
Right.
So what do you say to that?
Well, number one, what did they mean by misinformation? So we've had a lot of articles written about us that said we spread vaccine misinformation. That's the biggest topic, is the vaccine misinfo or disinfo. But I've not read an article that actually lists, bullet point, what we spread that was disinfo. Here's what we tell people. Every time we speak, we share certain facts about vaccines. Number one, when it comes to coronavirus vaccine, none of them have been approved by the FDA. They've been authorized by the FDA under emergency use, but they've not been approved. That's not misinfo. That's the truth. They haven't been approved. We will share the fact that in 1986, the Vaccine Act was passed, which gave vaccine manufacturers immunity from being sued. That's not misinfo. That's the truth. That's what the 1986 Act did, is it gave them immunity. We will also share the fact that since about 1990, when the VA ERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, was implemented, there have been over $4.5 billion paid out from the vaccine court to families of people that were damaged by the vaccines. That's what the court ruled. I mean, it's readily available on CDC website. Actually, sorry, that's DHHS. CDC has the list of the excipients in the vaccine. So you can check this, the VAERS payouts on the DHHS website. That's not disinfo, it's just fact. The statistics as far as here's where the waters get muddied. Just because there's a death that's been reported to VAERS doesn't mean it was caused by the vaccine. But the person reporting it thinks that there's a correlation, right? So we're not, and we try not to ever say, 4.5 billion people have been reported to have died from the vaccine, because we're not certain that they actually died, but more investigation should be done, and none's being done, right? So that's all we're saying. If you look at the coronavirus vaccine, this is one of the facts that we share. Since January 1st, 2020 till today, there's been, I believe, over 6,000 deaths reported to the VAERS system from the coronavirus alone. Since the VAERS system was implemented in 1990 through 2020, that's 30 years, there was only 4,100, I believe. So we tell people there's more deaths now that have been reported after the COVID vaccine than the last 30 years, all vaccines combined. That's not disinfo. That's available on the CDC's website. It's called the Wonder website, where you can get the open access to the VAERS data. So that's not disinfo either. Another thing that we share is about vaccines is that we will always ask the audience, or in the articles we'll ask people, have you ever heard of ICD-10 codes? What are ICD-10 codes? Well, ICD-10 codes are codes that are available for doctors to use when they're billing Medicare to speed up the billing, because there's certain adverse events that come from a treatment that are so common that they give them a code instead of having them list it out, write it out, saves them time. Well, there's dozens of ICD-10 codes for vaccine injury now.
Interesting.
So if there weren't injury that's being caused from vaccines, why would there be ICD-10 codes to speed up the billing from the symptoms are the most common, which is clearly vaccine injury?
So I am a reporter, which means I'm a generalist in nature. We study certain subjects and report on them, but I am by no means an expert. And I think that's one of the things that I wanted to say. Your background is obviously in taxes. You have a CPA,
yes,
but you're not a researcher. You're not a doctor.
Well, okay, I disagree with that.
All right.
I am a researcher. Anybody can research. There's not necessarily any written qualifications that you have to research. People research all the time, and you don't have to have a degree in researching to be a good researcher.
So your critics,
I would disagree with that.
I understand.
I'm not a doctor, though, clearly.
Your critics would say you're not a trained researcher, that you are someone that just gathers facts and practically puts them out for someone else to interpret. So what do you say to criticism that you're not a doctor and that you're not an expert in these fields? Do you feel you have become an expert?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really know what they mean if they say I'm not a trained researcher, whatever that means. I've been researching for 30 years. I was able in graduate school to be able to research the Internal Revenue Code and make sense of it. If I can research that, I can research medical articles, not that much different in the lingo.
Interesting.
And so I feel like, yeah, I'm an expert researcher, even though I don't have a degree in researching. And I think it's a little duplicitous for people to say that I have no say or no voice because I don't have a degree in researching, or I'm not a, quote, trained researcher, when there are thousands of people out there that are posting things that they are in favor of that they don't criticize, right? So it doesn't go both ways.
Yeah, and I think the criticism that you face is, often from people who have dedicated their lives to science. You have not. So when they say, we have dedicated our lives to this and our careers to understanding how these viruses work, you are not such an expert. So what do you say to people that are like, you're not an expert on this. You really don't have the background or the knowledge to be doing what you're doing?
Well, I disagree that I haven't dedicated my life to this. I believe now almost 26 years since Dad died, and been researching ever since then. I've dedicated about half my life to it. So I would disagree with that criticism from other people, because I have. And I don't know that I've ever disagreed specifically with any person out there that's a medical doctor that has, dedicated his or her life to science, and I would also question what do they mean by science, because science, the scientific method says that you investigate things. That's part of the scientific method itself. And with vaccines, we are told, don't investigate, don't question, and if you do, you'll be censored. That's not science. That's antithetical to what science is. But when I listed those ICD-10 codes, I wasn't debating that. Let me say that again. I've done the videos before, so like, you know,
totally fine.
So when I mentioned those ICD-10 codes, I wasn't debating any particular person out there. I'm just stating a fact. There are ICD-10 codes. There was a 2011 Supreme Court decision named Brusewitz versus Wyeth, and the Supreme Court ruled that, quote, vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. That was the Supreme Court of the USA in 2011. Now, if the Supreme Court has ruled that vaccines are unavoidably unsafe, then how can we say that the vaccines are safe and effective? Because the Supreme Court says they're not, by nature. They're not safe. And we're not telling people nobody should get vaccinated for anything. We're just saying, here's the facts, right? And I don't know that I've ever said, don't ever get vaccinated for this or that. We give people the facts and we let them make up their own minds. But the things that I've just listed to you, they're not disinfo. It's just facts. And that's really all we talk about, is that we bring facts to light. And it's kind of bizarre today that when you bring up facts about vaccines that paint them in a negative light, which many of the facts do paint them in a negative light, then you're called a spreader of disinfo, and they call to censor your social media pages. I think it was on Twitter, but I can't remember which of the social medias, we posted a screenshot of the VAERS data from the CDC Wonder website that showed that through whatever date it was, I think it was in May, there was 4,000 or 5,000 deaths. We just posted that. They flagged it, took it down, said it's spreading disinfo or whatever they say, you know, questionable material. It's like, it's a screenshot of the CDC's website. Since when is that questionable? It's not disinfo when you share facts that are recognized by mainstream medicine, right?
You know, and I think that, and I'm sorry, Joseph, I'm stepping into your shot there when I do that, I always want to give people a chance to respond to the critics. And we've done a lot of research and we've talked to a lot of people that really consider what you are doing to be not only spreading misinformation, but dangerous. Some of these, you know, when you talk to your critics, they say, you're an extremely dangerous person. What you're doing is dangerous. You're costing people their lives by feeding them fake information. So how do you respond to that?
Well, number one, we're Christians, we love people, and claiming that we're dangerous it makes me laugh, because our whole goal is just we love people so much that we want to share the truth with them. That's it. So, and they claim that we're dangerous by spreading disinfo. Again, I'll go back to what I just told you. None of them can name any of the things that we just said that are disinfo. They're not disinfo, they're facts.
I think they would disagree with you on that. I think they would say, okay, so what we have is the facts, and what you are doing is twisting the facts. But you're missing my point here, though. All I'm talking about is what I just told you, which is what we typically speak about and write about. The VAERS data, that's a fact. The ICD-10 codes, that's a fact. The numbers of people that have died after the vaccines, that's a fact. The Supreme Court decision in 2011, that's a fact. That's not disinfo. And when we go to the CDC's own website and we download the vaccine excipient table, we are told that we're spreading disinfo when we name the ingredients in the vaccines that are on that PDF that's on the CDC's website. That's not disinfo. It's just not. And now, I mean, I understand that some people still go through all that, and maybe they say, well, that doesn't matter because, and then they rationalize that all of this potentially harmful information about vaccines doesn't matter. But those facts, regardless, they're not disinfo. And if they draw a conclusion after going through all of these facts that they still want to vaccinate, that's fine. But I just don't understand how we're spreading disinfo by quoting statistics and ingredients on government websites. So, you know, again, I always want to put myself in the minds of your critics, and I know you have been so heavily criticized that I want to be able to give as many options as I can to respond to that. I think some people would say the smartest people in the world have said this vaccine is going to save lives when we're talking about the coronavirus. and yet you are encouraging people not to take it.
Okay, number one, like I said, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit it, but I don't remember ever telling someone specifically, don't take the coronavirus vaccine. We've warned that they're dangerous, that we believe they're dangerous.
Well, I think in watching videos, especially of your wife outside of the Capitol on the day of the riot, she was very much saying how dangerous and deadly the vaccine is.
Right, but at the same time, I mean, I believe that we're allowed to hold that position and tell people that we believe it's dangerous and deadly. That's not the same thing as saying, don't take it, Jeremy. It's not
interesting. So your argument then is, we're going to tell you our side of this.
No, it's not our side. It's just the facts.
Okay.
These are facts from government websites. We're going to tell you the facts on the government websites. And if you want to disregard those facts, that's fine. But this is, based upon these facts, yeah, we have formed an opinion. We believe this could be a toxic vaccine, right? Based upon some of the ingredients in the vaccines, like with Moderna's vaccine.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that quoting facts is pushing our opinion on someone. We're just letting them know the facts. They don't want to listen to it. That's okay.
Yeah. And I also wanted to point out that we're going to put all this online so everybody can watch it and see how your responses to all of these questions. The full interview, yes. So you will, so people can say, like,
even when I corrected myself.
Well, but you corrected yourself, so it's fine. You know what I mean? I think that's fine. But I just wanted you to know that, people will be able to watch this, and so if they accuse us of leaving stuff out, we can say the whole interview's online for you to watch. But I think the one of the the major criticisms is that you're making a profit off misinformation. That you're about to hold an event in Nashville in October that could bring in a whole lot of money. I know you say that you're not presenting misinformation, but it seems like that you have built a business on what people consider to be alternative truths. So I wonder what you say to that.
Okay, well, yes, certainly we do have a business. I think there's one truth, right? So I don't think our truths are alternative. And I don't believe, like, when you think of alternative treatments for cancer, right? These are actually treatments that have been used for thousands of years. The new treatments are the chemo and radiation. That's the new stuff on the block. So these aren't really alternative. These are traditional treatments. The indigenous Indians here used a lot of these treatments, and indigenous people all over the world have used these treatments. And in Asia, these treatments have been used, since 500 BC or 500 AD. So I don't think that these are alternative by any means. But the accusation we built a business on disinformation, again, name some disinformation. We state facts. We state facts about vaccines, and we share research on different alternative, to use that word, but I like to call them advanced treatments for cancer, but people understand the alternative treatments for cancer verbiage. We do publish a lot of information on that, but we've never said, you should only do this treatment for cancer, you should only do this, you should not take this vaccine, you should take. We don't give advice like that because we're not doctors. We can't give medical advice. All we can do is share information, and that's what we've done. But again, the main claim that we've built a business on disinformation, we do have a business. Yeah, and last time I checked, it wasn't a crime to have a successful business. Yeah. Now, where I would disagree with that again, just to reiterate, is it's not disinfo.
So I want to go back to something that you just said. You said it isn't a crime, but there are people that are saying what you're doing is dangerous. What you're doing is actually costing people their lives because they're buying into this and not getting vaccinated, and then they're dying. So what do you say to that?
Well, number one, I was just using a slang, right? It's not a crime. In other words, it's okay, right? So I didn't even mean it literally. It's okay to have a business, right? This is America. People like to have successful businesses. Now, when they say that they're dying because of our disinfo, I'd say, again, we haven't spread any disinfo. How is bringing to light government documents and government facts and government ingredients on the CDC website disinfo? It's not. So we've put information together in an understandable form. We've made movies about it, and some people that want to support us buy the movies, and we've given almost $500,000 to charities over the last few years. Nobody mentioned that.
And you won't be surprised at this criticism, but there are a lot of people that believe that you are part of a vast conspiracy theory network, right?
Yeah.
That you are part of this misinformation conspiracies, and it's all for political reasons. So what do you say to people that say, listen, you're just part of this misinformation agenda for political reasons?
Yeah, that's patently absurd. And a lot of people, I've seen articles where they've gone back to the fact that on January 6th we were in D.C. And literally several articles have said that the Bollingers were instrumental in the Capitol riot. Literally, I'm like, well, number one, part of this vast conspiracy, whatever they're talking about, I have no idea what they're talking about. Until the day before, we were considering not even going. And so if we actually had co-conspirators to hook up with there, we were about to back out. No. So to me, that's just patently absurd that we're part of some conspiracy, especially when it comes politically, because we weren't even going to, the day before we were like, we're not even sure if we're going to go. And then like the Capitol riot, I went over to the Capitol. Thank God I didn't go in the building. I just stood outside. But it's like we instigated the Capitol riot. I didn't even know it was happening. Until like an hour in, I got a text like, hey, a lot of people are going to the Capitol. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the Capitol. But as far as instigating it, that's kind of funny that I didn't even know it was happening until an hour in. So, yeah. And I went and it's interesting too, the way that the mainstream media has portrayed what happened at the Capitol is this insurrection or riot. That's not what I saw.
Well, hold up here.
I'm just going to tell you what I saw.
Okay, because there was clearly a riot at the Capitol.
I'm telling you what I saw. I didn't see. I've seen videos on television. I did not see that personally. I'm just going to tell you what I saw.
So you did not see what happened inside and everything. You saw what happened outside.
I'm telling you what I saw. And I'm not disputing that whatever happened inside happened inside. I'm just saying I was outside the Capitol, and what I saw was we all sang the Star Spangled Banner. A couple thousand people. That was cool. I got chills just singing it. And then God Bless America. I saw that. I did see a couple of people throw water bottles at the police, at which point I saw people that I think were good people, tackled them and said, don't do that, we backed the blue. That's what I personally saw. All the other films, I didn't see them.
Did you leave when things started getting out of control? I just wonder what made you finally decide to leave.
I left because I do a radio show every week and I had to get on the show.
Oh, yeah. It was you had a timing issue.
Yeah, I was probably there for maybe 20 minutes, and I had to get on my radio show, and so I literally did the radio show walking back.
Understand. I want to give you this chance to just speak to your critics, right? You've read the articles, you've seen what people have said about you. We could stand here all day, and we could go back and forth on what critics have said to you. But I want you to kind of be able to say what you've always wanted to say to people who believe, frankly, that what you are doing is dangerous. What would you say to them?
First thing I'd say to people that think what we're doing is dangerous is we are in America and you're welcome to have that opinion. And that's one of the things that makes our country great, is that you can have that opinion. And that's fine. And we don't hate you because of it. We're, as Christians, we love you. And so that's what I say to the critics. And we pray that you'll live a good life. And that we pray that our country stays free. There's a lot of things that I think people on both sides of the aisle can agree on that we've forgotten that we can actually sit down and talk and be civil. And one of the things that we can agree on is that we want a good country. And we want a free country. At least I think most people want a free country. And so I'd say we love you, we'll pray for you, and we wish you the best. But we also don't believe that our motivations for all of the things that we've done is never to harm people. It's never to be profiteers or whatever they've called us in the media. And it was never to get wealthy based on sharing the truth with people. We love people and we want them to have the truth, and that's all we've ever done. And and again, we're for freedom. And so that means that it goes both ways. So people should have the freedom, if they're diagnosed with cancer, to do any treatment they want, the right to try. Almost every other country you can, but in the USA, doctors aren't allowed to prescribe certain treatments. Yeah. We just think they should be available. And then people can make up their mind. And when it comes to vaccines, the same. We want people to have the information to make a good choice about whether or not they vaccinate. That's our whole mission in life now, is just to spread the truth and let people make up their own mind. And if they decide that they don't agree with our position, God bless you. It's a free country. Go take the vaccine that you want, and we wish you well. Or if you don't want to do a natural treatment for cancer, go do the chemo and radiation, and we wish you well. We don't wish, see, that's the thing that boggles my mind is, I've gone to the websites on some of these hit piece articles, I consider them, and people are saying that our children should be killed, and that they should come to our house, and we should all be shot, or we should be hanged. And I'm like, we don't wish that against people that we disagree with. So why is there so much hate towards us? And that's what we don't understand.
I do want to ask you about that. Have you faced some death threats? Have you faced some threats?
Multiple death threats.
Multiple death threats?
Yes. By people that we disagree with. And it's like, we do everything we do to try to help people. And we've never tried to force what we believe on anyone. We just want you to know this information's out there. If you don't buy into it, you don't believe it, you don't follow it, that's okay. But I don't wish you harm. I don't want your children to be killed. We had a threat that they would cut our kids' heads off. They're going to behead our children. It's absurd. It's insane. The hate that's spread towards us because we try to share the truth about cancer and the truth about vaccines with people. And so I don't understand that, because we wish well for people that we disagree with. We want everyone to prosper. I don't care if you agree with my ideology, my politics, my views on natural medicine or not. I wish you the best.